Well, good morning, colleagues. My name is Mark Koziol from the Pharmacist Defence Association in the UK. I'm a pharmacist. I'm very proud to be a pharmacist, and I'm very proud to be amongst all pharmacist colleagues from all around the world. I'm thrilled, in fact, that we've been able to be invited to present our work of what we've hoped to achieve in Ukraine. I want to take us all on a brief journey this morning because this happens to be about Ukraine. But it could actually be about any crisis in the world. There has been a more recent crisis in Pakistan. There are earthquakes in different parts of the world. And I want you to have a think about some of the things that we talk about this morning being applied, those principles, to any kind of crisis and how pharmacy could respond to that crisis. So that's the journey that I want to take you on this morning. I think we have an important journey. It is a shocking journey, but it also is a very humbling and surprising journey that I'm hoping to share with you this morning. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out what the situation might look like in Ukraine. When we were asked by our colleagues, pharmacists from Ukraine, to help, we contacted the Polish government and the Ukrainian government and also sources on the ground to find out what's going on. We were also watching TV channels every evening. And what was very interesting was that whilst Ukraine had a particular stockpile of medicines to treat certain conditions, when the war started to get very, very large scale, they started to run out of those medicines, medicated dressings, specialist antibiotics, the kind of medicines that you would use in a wartime crisis. So there were shortages of medicines. The whole world responded very, very quickly in all of our countries. In the UK, where I'm from, there were enormous levels of support from the public, and the Disasters Emergency Committee managed in one evening, the day after the invasion, to raise £120 million. And then the government added another £25 million on top of that. From the conversations that I've had with the charity organisations, this was a record-breaking appeal, and I believe the same was the case all around the world. Individual members of the public also were desperate to respond. So how did they respond? They decided to send boxes to the Polish-Ukrainian border. In our conversations that we had with the Polish government, they said, look, if there's one message that we want you guys to give, it's to tell the public to stop sending boxes. These boxes contained clothes, they contained tents, they contained food like sandwiches, they contained medicines, they contained everything. In the end, they had so many boxes, there was an epidemic on the border. They were in tents, they were in warehouses, they were in ditches, they were under plastic sheeting. And in the end, the government just couldn't work out how it could handle those boxes. We went to take some pictures. This was the scene that you would see. Now, can you imagine medicines being transported in this way? And can you, for one moment, as pharmacists, understand why you just can't use those medicines transported in that way? People were sending them by courier, in cars, in lorries, in vans. On the right-hand side of that picture is a field pharmacy near the front line. It's now in a theatre because the hospital has been destroyed. There were all more organised events as well. We got one story from a Ukrainian health ministry where a very large lorry with medicines that had travelled from one of the Western countries arrived in a hospital in Ukraine. And the lorry driver said, can somebody sign for this delivery? Well, they got the pharmacist out to say, what's this? And he said, well, this is medicines. And the pharmacist said, well, where are these medicines from? He said, I don't know. Can you just sign because I'm the lorry driver? Well, the pharmacist couldn't accept those medicines into stock. Can you imagine us supplying medicines like that to the public? We don't know how they travelled, we don't know under what conditions, we don't know their origins. Unfortunately, those medicines, though they were heartfelt gifts from somebody, ended up under sheeting in a car park. They simply couldn't be used. Why? Well, we know, our expertise tells us, hospitals can only use quality assured medicines. We know that medicines can only be delivered under optimum conditions. You can't have a transport that's moving chickens in the morning, transporting medicines in the afternoon. This is all part of the quality systems process, the cold chain, as we know it, that we as pharmacists know and understand, under fully regulated systems where we know we've protected the patients from falsified medicines, everything is properly accounted for, and everything is properly delivered. So once we did a situation analysis, we figured out that our campaign objective should be actually very simple. At the top of everything was the humanitarian cause. We wanted to help people that were seriously in need of medicine. So that was our number one objective. But I think in the slide that was prepared earlier, never waste a crisis, this was a crisis that we could use for other beneficial purposes. So we wanted to educate the public to stop sending boxes and to send money instead to pharmacy. Why? To allow pharmacy expertise to be used to purchase the hospital medicines that are desperately needed. While we were running this campaign, we were going to try and educate the public all about the nature of medicines, they are not normal items of commerce, and also about the expertise of pharmacy. We needed to raise very, very substantial funds because the kind of medicines we were buying was not paracetamol. This was specialist antibiotics, wound dressings, infusion bags, some of the most sophisticated pain-killing agents. Very, very expensive indeed. We knew that we needed to raise a lot of funds. So what did we have? We knew that the public was very, very interested. We knew that there were many, many thousands and thousands of community pharmacies right across our area, which was the continent of Europe. We knew that we had several countries available, so we could do an extensive campaign, and we had some expertise within the group. I was fortunate, coming from the PDA, we have 70 staff, we have a design department, we have an IT department, we have lawyers, and in particular in Poland, a union in Poland called ZZPF, of which Klaudiusz Gajewski is the treasurer, he has 20 years of expertise in wholesaling and procurement, and he happened to be right on the border between Poland and Ukraine, which was really very fortunate indeed. So we had all of those things going for us. So we decided to design a campaign poster that we would be using in pharmacy windows. This is the initial impression. It's been designed to make sure that the person that's running for the train station in the morning, as they run past the pharmacy window, at a glance they can see what this is all about. It's about pharmacists having a role in organising the medicine supply to Ukraine. If anybody was in any doubt or had a moment to read, it was about sending hospital medicines to Ukraine. It was about pharmacist volunteers working to deliver this, but it was an appeal to the public to give us their funds. They were able to give us their funds by clicking on the QR code, which took them to a bank account that they could pay money into. And then finally, at the bottom of that, there is a descriptor that shows this is not a national campaign, this is a truly international campaign. So there is structure, there is order, there is professionalism, and there is confidence. And those were important facets of this campaign. It is a poster that can instantaneously be translated and is now being displayed in pharmacies across Europe in different countries. When they click on the QR code, it takes them to a website. I can't go to navigate the website from the podium, but the bottom line is it tells the story of the boxes. Don't send boxes, send the cash. It tells the story that there are some real shortages of medicines, specialist medicines in hospitals. It tells the story of how pharmacists can solve this problem, that we have the expertise, we have the knowledge, and we understand how to transfer and procure medicines. And then finally, it tells the story of how we're working with both the Polish and the Ukrainian governments to organise safe and proper transport across the border. If you look in the top left-hand corner of that post of that website, you see it's in 7 different languages. So if you click the QR code in Norway, it tells the story in Norwegian. So this is our opportunity for people to be driven to help the Ukrainian humanitarian crisis, but as they go, they learn about the issues around medicines and the issues around what pharmacists can offer. We knew that we wanted to centralise the funding. So all the money from all of the different countries and all of the different campaigns would go to Poland near the border, which would enable us to organise the procurement. Now that's not the same as saying we buy all the medicines in Poland, because some of these things that we're getting, like blood products for example, are manufactured in Switzerland. Some of the other products are manufactured in different countries, but the expertise to make those decisions is in Poland, and that's how the procurement exercise works. So we centralise the funding. Very, very important principle. Under no circumstances whatsoever did we want pharmacy to handle any money here. We've all seen in our own countries how somebody started off a fantastic charitable campaign which went horribly wrong. Why did it go horribly wrong? Because it became very, very famous, lots of people knew about it, and then somebody in the newspaper asked the question 6 months later, what happened to the money? And suddenly there isn't an accounting procedure, or there aren't proper records, or there aren't satisfactory records. So we did not want to expose pharmacy to that, so we decided that we were going to team up with a charity. The charity that we teamed up with was a very well-known charity in Poland called Caritas, and they agreed to do our Just Giving page, but we had to get them to sign a written legal agreement, because the last thing we wanted to do was to collect the money and then Caritas decide they were going to spend it on something else. So we've got memorandums of understanding signed legally with that charity to make sure that the money that they receive is spent on exactly what we tell them and where we need to procure the medicines from. But here's the interesting part of it. If you're in Norway or in the UK and you go to this place and you see this, you're a little bit puzzled because it's in Polish. Not only that, the culture in Poland is that if you transfer money, you transfer it by bank transfer. Well, in the UK, you pay by Visa and MasterCard. In Norway, you pay by VIPs on the telephone. So we realised, and we're learning lessons as we're going, so we're going through that 7 learning principle cycle. We needed a charity in each country. So every single one of our FU members had to find a local charity, had to get them to sign a written legal agreement because the language and the culture was different. But what we discovered, and this is a journey of discovery, was that the taxation laws are different. If I put £100 from UK into the Polish charity, I've put £100 in. If I do the same in the UK, the government adds an extra £25. It's called gift aid. It comes from the taxation system. And a similar system exists right across the continent, although different percentages apply. So it was really important that we collected the money in the countries, different countries, and sent them all through to one central location. But most importantly, we dealt with all of those charities because we had to protect the reputation of pharmacy. That was an important part of it. So what else did we learn? Caritas, our charity in Poland, it's a Catholic charity. 98% of people in Poland happen to be Catholics. They have lots of churches. Their role was to receive the funds, paying for the medicines. Because they are located very closely to the border, it transpired that they do 2 or 3 journeys every week transferring items into Ukraine. So they came with transportation routes, security, diplomatic channels, all of these added value benefits that would have been hard for us to get. And then guess what they said to us? We thought we were the junior partner going to see them to say, is there any chance that you could do us a payment page? Do you know what they said to us? We are deeply honoured to have been approached by a group of healthcare professionals. We're delighted to support your campaign. I don't suppose you would mind very much. We know you want to put these posters into pharmacy windows, but can we put those posters into our churches as well? Well, guess what we said? In fact, we said, yes, please. So we happened to be travelling along Claudius and I in Poland. We stopped off in one little town, and there was a church, and there was one of our posters in the church notice board. The message about pharmacists, about medicines, about procurement, all of those messages going to far more people. What about the other European charities? When we spoke to them about opening the Just Giving page, do you know what the CAFOD charity said to me in the UK? They said, we've just written a report because we wanted to do medicines for a long time, but the report said, we don't have the expertise. It's a highly regulated area. It's really complex. Don't touch it. We shouldn't deal with it. But you guys sound as if you know what you're talking about because you're pharmacists. And then guess what they said? Can we ask you to use our funds in your campaign? So guess what we said? In fact, we said yes 3 times. We've had 6-figure sums given to us. We never anticipated that this would happen because they recognise the expertise that we pharmacists have got. Sometimes others out there recognise the expertise that we've got in a way that we sometimes don't because we live in it and we take it for granted. So then we went to visit Ukraine. We were told by lots of our colleagues, we were told by even our families and friends, you shouldn't be going there, it's not safe. But we said we had to go. We decided to go on principle, Claudius and I, because we felt it was going to be important to the project. We didn't realise just how important that visit to Ukraine was going to be. We only went for a couple of days. I can tell you, I came back as somebody that normally works in an office, going to a wartime zone, as a changed person. The things that I saw, I will not be able to unsee. So it did deeply affect me. We had our mobile phones taken off us, our computers taken off us because we were briefed by security. It wasn't safe to use Western mobile phones over there. When we were approaching the border, we were travelling through diplomatic channels. There was a 20-mile queue of those lorries at the border trying to get into Ukraine. We went through because we had the diplomatic clearance. Images of war were everywhere. Posters, President Zelensky exhorting the population to come to the defence of the people. Martial law. The lights were out at 10 o'clock. We visited one place, it was a hospital for children, and we spoke to the clinicians there, and they were absolutely determined to take us up on the wards. We didn't particularly want to go, but we went. The things that I saw on those wards, I don't really want to describe, but in one particular case, it just looked like a little bundle of rags, but it was a child. whose parents had been blown up, and this child was just held together with micropore tape. And then the clinicians said, if we can save this child's life, we're going to have to tell him that he doesn't have any parents anymore. Those are the kind of things that you will never forget, and I'm sure many of you in this audience have been to a lot worse situations like that, but these things are stick in your mind for the rest of your life. But what did we see? What did we really learn when we went there? Security preparations are extremely important. Do you know that when we went about this campaign and we approached the Ukrainian government, they wouldn't talk to us first because they wanted our passports, our driving licenses and our dates of birth. And we said, we're the good guys, we're trying to help you. They said, we need to check you, we need to vet you, we need to understand who you are, because there are a lot of wise guys running around wanting to help Ukraine, but it turns out that they're not helping Ukraine in the end. So we had to be checked and vetted. The security detail that the Ukrainians gave us was extremely important. It enabled us to get through the border. The customs officials knew we were going. They were desperate for this to be a successful mission because we took about 200,000 euros worth of medicines through on the first transit. They had arranged visits with local officials, and that picture in the bottom right-hand corner is the senior clinical staff in one of the hospitals that we visited. And I witnessed something very unusual there. When we got into the room, their arms were crossed and their knees were crossed, and the body language wasn't very good. And I was trying to work out what's going on because we were there to help. The moment they understood that we were pharmacists, we actually started to have a conversation about antimicrobial resistance. The body language changed enormously, and they were absolutely delighted to be talking to pharmacists. Here is something else that we take for granted. Our skills and our clinical knowledge is highly valued wherever it is that we go, and I noticed it very much so on that day. The delivery had to be supervised, so in the top right-hand corner you can see a picture where we were in the initial warehouse. That's just some of the items that we took. We had to make sure that they actually arrived to the right destination point. And that picture in the bottom left-hand corner just shows you the extent that you have to go to make this work. It wasn't just Claudius and I going there. We had 3 security officials that the Ukrainians gave us. The Poles gave us 3 security ex-army people just in case there was any trouble. And we took a film crew with us and a humanitarian expert. All of these things were necessary in our first trip over there to make this successful. And it came very noticeably useful when we were filming in the street and all of a sudden these 2 black cars stopped. Lots of people jumped out and said, what are you doing filming? There's martial law, you're not allowed to film. And our security detail from the anti-corruption ministry were able to talk to them quietly by the tree, told them what they were doing, and they left us alone and they let us carry on filming. It just goes to show you the extent that you have to prepare to make sure that this works properly. They even went to the extent where they had the TV stations prepared. Now I'm going to show you 2 very, very brief excerpts that we've truncated. These are national news channel TV programmes.
Були усі необхідні ліки. Закордонні фармацевти та благодійники об'єдналися і створили ініціативу із забезпечення медикаментами. Нині вони відвідали Львівську дитячу лікарню Святого Миколая, що на вулиці Орлика. Обговорили з працівниками, чого зараз бракує найбільше у медзакладі. Згодом препарати закуплять за кордоном та передадуть на місця.
So this one is a Polish one, the last one was a Ukrainian one. This one hasn't got subtitles, but we had these news films going on in different parts of Europe. And as you can see, images of medicines, the skills of pharmacists, what pharmacists can do, how pharmacists are working to help in the crisis, and appealing to people not to send boxes, because if you send boxes of medicines, you end up with complete chaos. So these were the messages that we were able to get through on the news channels. Now my question, ladies and gentlemen, is when was it the last time that pharmacy appeared on prime time television with those key messages advocating what our profession does, what we do as pharmacists, and how we can provide benefits in healthcare and in this situation, in a humanitarian crisis? So what have we learned? Very important to make sure that you've got the border sorted out and the anti-corruption officials have to be there. The push system is not welcome. That bottom right-hand meeting is a meeting with the Ministry of Health officials and the military hospital officials. And they said to us that they were very grateful for the help from the West, but some of the help was not useful at all. That corridor that you see there, I'm walking down, it was a picture of boxes and boxes and boxes of ventilators. It happened to be a military hospital. And I asked the medical director, have these soldiers got a problem with breathing or what's happening? He says, no, one of the countries sent their leftover ventilators from the COVID crisis. We won't use them, we don't need them, but that's the kind of help we got. These two ministry officials were explaining to me that the UK managed to send, and I can say that because I'm from the UK, managed to send 2 of the largest lorries they've ever seen in their lives full of paracetamol with 2 weeks dated supply on them. They didn't need them, they didn't want them. Now they've got to figure out how to destroy them. If you do an internet search, I've taken the name of the country out from that newspaper, but some countries are guilty of greenwashing the help that they're giving. Our campaign was very different. It's not a push campaign. We wait for the hospitals to tell us exactly what they need, and then we procure what it is. The officials told us something else. Whatever you do, don't do single hospital arrangements. Where you know a pharmacist called Witold who works in a hospital somewhere, and all the medicines go to Witold in that hospital. That actually is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution, because it doesn't allow the organisations to organise the humanitarian care where it is exactly needed. They told us about many challenges in the western and eastern areas, not enough time to talk about just now, but I can't underestimate the importance of visiting the situation, because the lessons that we learned were extremely important. So, what makes this work? A regional network of pharmacy organisations, legal agreements to make sure that we have governance and that we protect the reputation of pharmacy, a single powerful poster campaign design, and a website that can support the whole process. And I want you guys to start thinking about crises in other parts of the world. These are the principles that we say you will consider adopting. Partnerships with charities are absolutely vital. It means that pharmacy doesn't ever touch the money, but the charities can provide added value benefits. Transferring all of the funds to a central location gives you buying power. Pharmacist expertise, above all, is the thing that will make this thing work, and this is the big opportunity that we have. So what else have we learned? We thought that most of the money would come from posters from the members of the public. It took us 2.5, nearly 3 months to launch this campaign, and by the time we launched it, the interest of the public had started to wane. Nevertheless, we've still got collections and contributions made across the whole continent. But what we learned was that it was the small charities, the institutions, the pharmacy organisations that are actually giving us the money, and the larger charities are giving us far more money, and we're now starting to talk to governments about making contributions as well. The other opportunity then is the publicity for pharmacy, because not only we were extensively on prime-time news channels, but we were actually producing a television film, a documentary, which we will produce in lots of different languages, which we already know those countries will be very interested in putting on their televisions, because it's an interesting story in the languages. It's all about the humanitarian crisis, but pharmacy is embedded very strongly within that. Raising the public profile. When members of the public leave money, they can put a comment on the Just Giving page. Those of us who are running pharmacy organisations might want to read some of these things. Keep up the amazing work. I am in awe of what you pharmacists are doing. Now, we run the PDA in the UK, so we're a pharmacy organisation, and somebody there said, as a member of the PDA, I am proud to support this initiative. These are very, very useful added value processes. And finally, access to the government. In that picture, you see the PDA team. We've got Natalia, who's here. She's our refugee from Ukraine who's helping us with the scheme. And that is a Member of Parliament from Wales. While Claudius and I were in Ukraine, our team went to the Welsh Parliament. There are 65 Members of Parliament in Wales. That afternoon, 32 Members of Parliament came to see us, to talk to us about what we were doing. Some of them said, we didn't know that pharmacists did this. We didn't know that there were all these complications with medicines. Our lobbyist that we took with us told us later we could have spent £100,000 and 2 years trying to build those connections, which we managed to do in one afternoon. And had it not been for the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth last week, we would have been in Westminster last week, but we're going in 2 weeks' time, and we're doing Scottish Parliament as well. All of this goes to show that pharmacy can deliver leadership in the important area of medicines in a crisis. So, finally, this happens to be FU. We say this could be FIP. This could be a crisis somewhere else in the world. Those core structures, those foundation stones could be used, because you need an organisation in the centre to do some of the initial design work, coordination and website work, and then you need regional countries, they could be members of FIP, to put the key in the engine and turn the key. Find a charity partner, get them to sign a legal agreement, distribute the posters and go to work, and in that way we create the win-win for everybody. So our final slide, clearly I would be mad not to come here and ask you to contribute to this campaign. If any of you feel generous enough to go to that website and donate, if every person that was coming to FIP Congress paid even €10, that would be 50,000 euros. That would be an awful lot of blood products that we could send. But actually, imagine this poster is in Japanese. Imagine it's displayed in South America. Imagine it's displayed somewhere else in Japan, for example. This campaign, we say, could go international, the Ukraine campaign, and we invite countries to join us so that we can join you into the campaign so that you can get involved in everything that we're doing. But finally, more strategically, we offer to work with FIP to share all of our systems and processes, because we believe that if that were to happen, it would absolutely enable international pharmacy to lead the world in times of crisis in relation to medicines. So thank you for indulging me for the last half an hour, and we hope to be able to answer any questions that you might have.